Thank you for coming to watch Dr. Smith's video today. We encourage you to hit the subscribe button and the alert button. That way you can get notifications when he uploads a new video. Thank you for coming today.
So we hope you take the time to hear and think about, and if you have a book, read in the book about the concept and the topics that we talk about. They have a lasting effect. The intent is not necessarily to treat pain, but to make permanent, long-term correction with your whole family and your friends.
Thank you. Make sure you subscribe and hit the alert button. Have a good day.
Have a good day. So we're talking now about doing force correction by tipping the pelvis or rotating the pelvis to enhance rebuilding. When we do force correction, it's kind of like pushing you until you respond more aggressively. That's kind of structurally what cortisone does chemically. When they do cortisone doesn't heal. Cortisone just aggravates the tissue locally to become more involved. So a cortisone shot is chemically, technically, temporary force correction. That's why sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Did that make sense?
It does, and also if you feel like you're standing up straight, but you're not standing up straight, is that pelvis tipping?
Just there are two problems. The one is the tip, and the other is the rotation.
Yeah.
And if you have both, sometimes the rotation is the main problem. From like sitting cross-legged or sleeping with the leg over like that, or for a long time.
You're the guinea pig today.
Okay, I'm going to move over to that.
And the body gets used to the rotation. I got rotation in my mid-spine as a teenager, not knowing what I was doing, by hauling hay and picking the bales up and going this way. I didn't like to go this way, I like to go this way. So my vertebra in the center of my back compensated. They adapted to the rotation and changed the shape of the vertebra, the bones, and put pressure on the discs. And when I finally got educated enough to learn what it was doing to me, then I had to spend 5 years undoing, remodeling by rotating, like on the T-zone, to get it back to neutral.
Thank you.
Yes.
So is there a pat answer on whether or not you wear a lift when you're on your T-zone? You do, you don't, or it depends on your situation?
Depends.
Okay.
Now the disadvantage that we have here is I don't have films, x-rays of the pelvis like I used to. I always used to take a front view and a side view standing of the whole spine, and then do the same pictures sitting on a level stool to see how the body was lined up or how the body was distorted and how much changed by just sitting down. Sometimes you can have a low hip and a rotation standing, and it goes away when you sit. Sometimes it's bad enough that it's worse when you sit and better when you stand. Here I don't have that luxury, so we have to do the best we can with what we feel and see. But a part answer to your question is, and I'll modify the question, is there any advantage to force correct anytime? The answer is yes. You can do that with, what that means is you tip the pelvis one way and then you tip the pelvis the other way. You can do that at home with a different pair of shoes. You can put shoes that have a heel and a moccasin or no shoe. So when you walk, one hip goes up more, and then you trade shoes, and it goes the other way. Now, when I go down to get my mail at the mailbox, I can choose to walk on the sidewalk, or I can walk off the sidewalk, and the road is tilted. So I walk that way, I get a lift on this side, and I turn around and come back, I get left on the inside. So I do bilateral, meaning both sides, first correction, to enhance the body's range of motion capacity. Did that make sense? So that's,
Now, in my case, with my back, I have a harder time on the left side. It's more tight, it's pulls, when I do the sacral slide, it gives me more static.
yes.
So would I walk,
The answer,
would the two be good for me or just one?
you could do both,
I can do
as
both,
long as it's short term.
okay,
May I talk about you?
yeah.
She has a significant old injury with curvature and a significant, it's not new, but a year old, a year and a half, a new injury with a fracture. So she has a combination of both. So the question, should you do more on one side than the other? I would say use symptoms as a guide. Do both sides, but use the side that feels best a little longer. And if
So the one that feels best, a little longer,
yes,
okay.
yes. And if it feels bad, and anytime you do any force correction, if you have a pain soon that's goes up to 5 or more, you're done. You're finished with that. Just stop. Don't go further. You can almost stress the body at that point. Good question. Any others?
I'm really curious about your walking on the road where it's not necessarily level. I'm out in the country and that's what I walk is the road, but I tend to walk down the side of the road that the traffic should be on, which means I'm on, my right foot's always lower than my left foot.
Why can't you?
Well,
Do you turn around and come back?
I turn around and come back on the other side of the road.
Stand
So I'm
still.
still,
Oh,
you're still
I'm still,
facing
and I'm thinking
traffic,
maybe
yeah.
that's why I have so much trouble on my one side.
Could be.
So I need to do the same side of the road so I'm getting,
Go down the
because
back.
walking seems to help my back.
Well, make that,
Daylight.
Revelation.
Yeah.
make that minor change. You'll know by the way you feel.
Okay.
Now,
Oh, thank you.
while we're on that concept, another thing you can do, if you want to do more correction, is you can carry in one hand a 2-pound weight, and in the other hand a 3-pound weight, or 1 and a 2, a low weight, less than 5, and about every minute trade hands. Because, like, if you carry your purse, if you carry your purse on the right shoulder, you're gonna lay left. A lot of women have problems in the low back because they always carry the purse on the same side and always laying the same way, and they generally have formed a habit and they do it incorrectly. So you should do both.
The bigger the person, more stuff it carries, so.
After you told us that, I don't know, 2-3 years ago when I first started coming, I threw away my purse and I carried
So you got a small purse. Yeah, smart.
And you manage, you carry it on the opposite side.
A lot of young women carry their babies around with
Oh, those seats.
a week's worth of supplies. And
Seats that weigh more than the kids.
Yeah.
Just clarification, didn't you say that rest is 80% as effective as sleep?
rest is 80% as effective as sleep.
Okay, I just wanted it in writing.
So whenever you're laying down, you can't get to sleep, or you wake up in the night, you can't go back to sleep, don't get up. If you do whatever you're gonna do quick and go back to bed. Don't start a project, get your mind going, just go pee or whatever you're gonna do, get back in bed and rest. If you need to think about something, you have a choice. You can either worry, come right in. We set the chair for you.
What if you listen to a conference talk?
Then you're working.
That's working.
Your mind runs a lot of calories. It's, the mind is specialized tissue. And if you're listening to a talk and paying attention to it, that's work. If you're listening to the Old Testament to try to get back to sleep by being bored,
Not my word.
you need to repent.
Oh. Would listening to a conference talk be preferable to getting very heated in your brain over issues you can't fix, your children? And
The good news about your brain is the brain can only focus on one thing at a time. The brain is like a ping pong ball. You can choose. The answer to your question is yes.
a conference talk would be better than.
Yeah, but that's
It's not resting.
not as good as.
No, it's still better to just rest. But if you're resting tends to take you to a place that's just driving you nuts. A conference talk would
Then
get
stop
you.
driving.
Stop driving.
Stop driving.
That's what the conference talk does, is get me out of the car. Okay.
Think of the conscious mind like a ping pong ball. Ping pong ball could be in one place or the other. It could be on the table or off the table. It can't be in all places at one time. The subconscious mind gets everything. Music, lawnmower, what you have to have for dinner, whatever, you know, it could go on, but the conscious mind can do one thing. And humans are the only being that can choose the channel. We can choose our station. You can choose to listen to a conference talk, or you can choose to, I think better than that, I'm a big believer in prayer. I totally believe that the more thankful you are for the more things that you're thankful for, the better your prayers permeate heaven. It's not a gimme list. It's not a advisor list. So you're telling God what to do. Like, please, God, fix my son or my daughter or the government. He's gonna just tell him that you're praying for them and you're thankful, and make a list of all the things you're thankful for. And you can remind him of those things over and over again. So you can be thankful over and over again.
How can we interpret and deal with some of the unusual social things that, like transgendering and these things that swirl around, and I don't understand where they're coming from and how they got here and what I should do about what I should do.
Okay, next week, our lesson next week is on stress.
Okay.
We're going to talk about that more in detail, but to answer your question, sometimes we make a list of things that are stressful. And then we transfer the list from the things that are bothering us, the stress, to the other side of the page. We list them again and what we can do, which ones we can fix easiest. Some things you can't fix. Those are the things that go down to the bottom of the list. You with me? Like understanding what's all the crap, who's pushing it or whatever. We can theorize, you know, it's God versus Satan, that's still the same battle. We can talk about that a lot. But the bottom line is, you can't do anything about it. You personally can only live in your circle of influence and do your thing. So when we make the list, transfer the list to the things we can actually do something about. And sometimes they're very close. Sometimes it's a family issue. Could be your spouse, could be one of your kids, could be one of your sons or daughter-in-laws that are being a real nuisance. So we get down the list of things that we can do and can't change. What do we do with the things on the bottom of the list? The way you fix them is discard them. Now you have on your TV and you have on your radio stations that you never listen to. Why? Because you don't like them, right? You don't, or a movie, you never listen to that station because they always play stuff you don't like. Well, don't listen to them. You have the conscious choice. And again, keep in mind, and you can think of it over and over. The conscious mind has the ability to choose to think about one thing at a time. Now, I recommend that you choose a song or a scripture or a saying that you can always push, and you go back to there. Now, for Betty, her backyard, earthing, that's her happy place. And she can go there anytime. If she's in church and they're giving a talk that's putting her to sleep, and she can just go back to the backyard and smile and be happy.
So when I burned my hand, I sprinkled it on. I thought it would take the sting out. So I sprinkled it on, it did, and it burned. So I put the mud on, put my hand in a bag, but I couldn't leave it on very long. And it created a big bubble. I didn't bother the bubble. For like a week, whatever, I realized in washing dishes one day that the bubble went down, flattened. I left it alone. You can't even see where I burned me. So is that the clay that did that? I put it on my legs too, and they just burned like crazy. I was hoping it would take the burn out.
Did you wet it?
Yeah, both.
Well,
When you sprinkled it on, did you wet it after that?
I wet my legs and then sprinkled it
Okay,
on.
so it was wet when you put it on.
Yeah.
Did you
Maybe
wrap
it
it
need more
with an
moisture.
airtight thing?
I did
Saran wrap?
I did saran wrap too.
well, don't do that.
But you're supposed to keep it moist though.
Let me tell you how to use it, just so you know.
Okay.
If you have a closed wound of any kind, you put an ample supply of wet clay
Okay.
and you let it dry. It draws. I got stung by a wasp last week. Right now, man, I felt like somebody jabbed me with a hot iron. I came right in and put wet clay on it, and within an hour, the wound was gone. The next day, there was no sign, none. You got sucked the poison out.
Okay.
So it has to dry out.
I would never wrap saran wrap.
No, that's for a burn.
What?
That's for a burn, to keep it moist and keep the clay on
So
it.
it's for any closed wound.
You need burn, because that's what the guy,
Any closed wound.
So you told me this story about the little girl that went through the fire. Or fell in the fire. That you used
She walked
the
in the
clay.
fire. We were camping, and she walked through the coals. Just learned how to walk through the coals. Had a
tender little.
3rd degree burn on the bottom of her foot. We put wet clay on it. Within a few months, it was totally healed. And everybody said, "Oh, you need to take her to the."
Did you keep it on constantly?
No, we just wait. Okay, you put the clay on, let it stay until it falls off on its own.
Okay.
Then you add more wet clay and let it dry and fall off on its own.
Just keep doing that.
You
Okay.
brush it, but don't wash it.
Right.
Don't wash it. Don't dig it because it's drying. If you have an open wound, dry clay.
Okay.
Dry clay. I'll give you another example. I was working in the shop. A piece of steel angle iron dropped and hit my leg. It hurt really bad. I knew it had done some damage. I did finish doing my thing, and then I went in and pulled up my pant leg. I had blood all down here. Pulled my sock down, and I had a strip about that long, about that wide. The skin was folded down.
Oh,
It hurt pretty bad. So I rinsed it off with water, straight water, and I put the skin back up where it belonged, nice and tight. It was an open wound, so I put dry clay. I put my sock on so the air could go, and that I didn't do anything else to that leg. It healed perfectly. What did I do the next day? I got in the bathtub and had a bath, did my thing. I still had clay on it. I pat dried it, added more dry clay. I just kept adding the dry clay, and it healed perfectly well. If you want to see my leg sometime, we'll see my leg. That's how you use clay.
okay.
Open one is what?
Dry.
Close this.
Wet.
When do you scrape it off?
When you
When
roll
it
off
falls
the side
off.
stuff, then put more on.
Bingo.
Like a scab. The wet clay acts like a scab, so you don't scrape it off.
When you're doing this,
Microcanyon.
yes, when you're going forward, when you're going, I can feel I can feel a gap between two bones right here. So do you go in that gap or do you go straight forward against the bone? Okay, so do I go into this gap right here between these two bones, or do I go straight forward into that bone?
You go into that bone.
I go into that bone,
Yeah. If
because that hurts a lot more than going into the gap.
Yeah. Again, if you have pain when you push in the direction you need it.
Okay.
And again, it's better to think of the laws of physics. Think of your husband. You can either push him a little bit often to get him to do something, or you can smack him. It works best to
Push
be
gently.
gentle. So on your head, light pressure, longer period. Light pressure, longer period.
You hold it.
Hold it longer, hold it longer.
Okay.
That's a law of physics. It all adds up to the same.
And I use my finger. Doesn't matter.
That's fine. Your bone doesn't care. It just wants to be
Okay.
moved gently. Anybody have any questions?
I have a question.
It's here.
Okay, my daughter, when she was a baby, had surgery on her abdomen. She
Yeah.
had it has, she has a scar there now, and the scar tissue pulls her off out of alignment.
Right.
What could she do about that?
Is the scar tissue across or vertical?
Do you remember, Gary? I think it's vertical.
Find out and text me. The problem with surgery and scars are they create what's called a keloid. So the scar tissue builds bigger and bigger, more and more, and can then cause a problem. So the idea is to shorten the tissue that's stretched.
Okay.
Shorten and sometimes if it's bad, have it take a picture of it, because you can put kinesio tape, the
Right.
round tape, apply, stretch, apply, or vertical if you need to take off the stretch. You want to take off the stretch. It might be torqued.
It might be. It makes her pelvis torqued.
I don't. I would think the pelvis is making this belly tort.
Okay, you think it's the opposite?
Yes, I think it's, yes, I do.
All right, I'll talk to her about that.
Yes, I've got a question about scar tissue. So you mentioned that, so I've got rods in my back.
Yes,
So I'm assuming I've got scar tissue on the top and the bottom where the hooks and screws are.
yes.
So you say that scar tissue continues to grow? Is that accurate? Like it
That's
does,
accurate.
okay.
All tissue, let me quote the medical textbook, Guyton. Dr. Guyton in medical physiology textbook makes this statement. There is a continual turnover of all connective tissue, scar tissue being included. It's always turning over. Now there's a couple of other laws that apply to the tissue turnover. All tissue adapts to the stress that it's under. You need to remember that. All tissue adapts to the stress it's under. And you have to make a note because the adaptation can be bad or good, depending on the respect for tissue tolerance. If you exceed tissue tolerance, the adaptation is breakdown. And that's why some scar tissue keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger because it's not aligned and moving properly. It's continually being re-injured and is being healed by scar tissue that's not good. If you stay within tissue tolerance, the new tissue becomes more like normal healthy tissue. So over time, the scar tissue that you originally had, like on the belly or where we have it, where we get cut or torn, the scar tissue will become less and less pronounced, more smooth, more elastic, less likely to take up space. This shouldn't be taken up by scar tissue. For example, this week I saw a lady who, when she was very young, she hurt her very low back. When the bone, before the bones had grown their complete size, so the what's called end plates in long bone and the spine is the same. The vertebrae are not, they don't grow all at one time into a little bone and grow up to a big bone. They grow in pieces, and then when the bone gets to its normal adult size, the spaces between the bone parts fill in. Up till then, they're cartilage. So they're bendable and moldable. She had a trauma that separated them. So right in the very low back, right down here in the L5 and sacrum, there was a separation, and it never healed properly. Then when she got in high school, she golfed. Now she's in high school, and the bones still in it are not stable yet. So she did a lot of turning. She developed a lot of scar tissue in that region. When that happens, and you get a lot of extra scar tissue, they, on a report would say that there is a space occupying lesion. It means something's a lesion, something that's grown in there that occupies a space that should not have anything in that space. So it's crowded. So she's had that for many, many years. Now the good news is you can always help me if you want. Thank you.
We have to be careful. when
I'm
we
not
do
a very good
things like
shot.
that.
So the good news is by her doing the sacral slide and recreating acceptable normal motion, the tissue that's been there for now over 30 years is going to be replaced with new tissue that will occupy less space and be more normal.
Now, should she increase her stem? Mega
Yes.
stem? To help that?
Yes, this Magnus stem helps more new cells grow.
What is that?
That's a nutritional product that we have here. You ask me when you come in, I'll talk to you about it.
Okay.
Magnus stem.
It's like fertilizer for your stem cells.
Wow, who
Some-
would want that?
Some people go get stem cell therapy, and I think this is a better approach.